Mel, welcome to Podcastina.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to start with a pretty broad question. Why do you think so many women are choosing to stay single today?
Because they don't believe all the lies that we've been told our whole lives as much. Because honestly, it's social media. That's really what it is. There's even been a huge change since just TikTok. As problematic as the app can be, it has fundamentally changed marriage because everything starts on TikTok and then it moves across the other platforms, and that's where women were having real honest conversations about what hell they were in these marriages. And then some women didn't even know they were in like being exploited, and then the women in the comments started being like, dude, like my husband doesn't do that. Why is your husband breaking your stuff? Why is he, like, are you sure he doesn't hate you? Like it's almost like an intervention happening over there. So, I mean, honestly, it's not like our most of our grandmas were hostages, and a lot of them tried to warn us. And then, my generation, I'm Gen X, I'm 48. So I was raised on like Designing Women and Murphy Brown and all these shows that were like, who's the boss? Where the woman is like, the breadwinner and just like go get your thing, do whatever you want. But the men have not. They don't want that. They want what they want what their boomer dads had. They want like all this. They don't want that. They still want all the power, but they actually want your money, but still want you to do everything at home. And like a lot of women are like, oh my God, I'm not doing this. I'm done. But we just didn't know because of social media. It's really storytelling changes the world. That's one of the reasons why I love storytelling and have been doing it for so long, because people relate to little details. And enough women are like, this is what it's like to be married. And then a lot of women were like, ew, I don't want that. Well, that's what it's like. Fuck that. Am I allowed to cuss? Okay, cool. Should have asked before.
No, it's okay. That's so true. A lot of that resonates with me. And I think TikTok has, for what it's worth, like obviously social media has its issues, but it does seem like this kind of communal app where things are a little more raw, a little less spruced up and polished the way that they are on Instagram. And through a lot of that content that's being spread on TikTok, I heard it put as today's man wants a submissive provider, and there's no such thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, one of the most, I've learned a lot from sharing my story, and then like with my mutuals, and I follow a lot of people. I've been actually deconstructing a lot of the stuff I've been through and seen it completely differently. And I didn't even know what a hobosexual was until I got on TikTok. And then I was like, that's what he was, a hobosexual. He literally didn't have a home. Mine was an extreme case. He rode the rails for 9 years. He was literally like cartoonishly hobo with like, a banjo and like all that. And moved in with me while I was on family vacation, and I couldn't get him out of my house. And I started hearing other women talk about these homosexuals. And I was like, holy crap. I had kind of understood that he was also like, violent and like, whatever. It was domestic violence in the end. But I didn't realize that financial abuse, how common that is. And I always thought it was like sleeping with the enemy, which ages me, but that's like Julia Roberts being controlled by this rich dude. But a lot of women, I would even argue more women than are dating men who are just taking their money and exploiting them through all this extra labor. Women, when they marry men, they end up like adding all this labor to their statistics. I forget the exact number, but they hoard all of the money. They spend the money on all their stupid hobbies and stuff, where the women are spending it on kids. They are hoarding all of the spare time with these. That's kind of one of the things I'm known for on TikTok, among other things, is talking about men's hobbies. As someone in the outdoors, those hobbies are very expensive, very time consuming. But it's not just that. There's like something called golf widows, right? Which is like, because the men are gone all the time and spend all this money on it, and women are almost like widowed to the golf. And so I just started to understand how many women are being financially abused by men. So, thinking that you can get your degree and have all this money will protect you from men screwing you over, that's not the case. Some of those men are the worst. Because then they quit their job as soon as you get married. And then you're like, why can't get off the couch, get a job? Well, why would they, when you can do literally everything? So, we just didn't understand, like, the more rights that we've gotten, the real problem is up here. It's like, we have money, we can leave, but we're still being sold through dating shows and constant movies and programming that, no, marriage is what you want. Motherhood is what you want. And so right now, the big challenge is like up here. It's in here. It's so deep. Decentering men is like, honestly, I think it's a lifelong journey, because every day I find a new little subtle way that I'm like, oh man, there it is, So, so yeah, I forget what your question was now, because I kind of went all over the place with that one, but
No, it's okay. It wasn't even essential, but just the, I guess, social commentary of, I've noticed men like to kind of hang on to this concept of, oh, well, we're supposed to be the providers and we're supposed to be the ones who are taking care of all the financial stuff. So it's equitable if the woman does all the stuff at home. And yet what you're saying here with these like hobosexuals, or even just the guys that want things to be 50-50, it never ends up being 50-50, because domestic labor always falls on the woman's shoulders.
Oh, 50-50 is BS, because there's like, even like, there's domestic labor, there's emotional labor, there's who's planning the social events. One of my viral articles for Harper's Bazaar, men have no friends and women bear the burden. Women are their therapist, they're their best friend, they're their little clown who entertains them. If they don't have any friends, they book their dentist appointments because they won't deal with their teeth unless they're forced to. They book their doctor's appointments, are their career coach, are like, try to get them to eat healthy, all this crap. It's like, it's so much work. And so it's laughable that they're the providers and protectors, providers of themselves, their egos and other men, and providers of trauma, endless trauma, and protectors of what? Like, literally, they're the bear. Like, I've been writing about this in the Daily Beast since 2020. Been talking about on TikTok for 6 years now. They are not the protectors. They are our apex predator. The most dangerous thing you can do is marry a man. As somebody who was a climber, a whitewater raft guide, I literally hung off of walls and seen people die in the wilderness, and have traveled alone, worked on a strawberry farm in Argentina. Like, I've done the most random crap in my life all alone. I was single all my 20s, almost all my 30s, except for like 9 months. And all of the dangerous shit I've done. The most dangerous thing I've ever done was date that freaking man and let him into my house. And I've also had a lot of wild hookups. I've like fucked so many dudes, and it was great most of the time because I was centering my pleasure. That's not as dangerous as falling in love with a man who's playing the long game, So provider, protector, my butt. And the thing is, the trad wives are like, that's a lie that never even existed. White women weren't working for a while after the Second World War, but women have always worked. Women have even been doing paid work for a long time. And a lot of women were not getting paid, obviously, if you talk about all of the exploitation of Black and Indigenous women and women of color. But white women, like my grandmas were working, like everyone's working. It's the men controlled the money. We couldn't, we couldn't have mortgages. We couldn't vote. We couldn't get abortions. We couldn't get credit. But we've always worked. So these men are just getting, and honestly, if a man says like 50-50 on a date, that man has been radicalized and red pilled, and get the hell away from him. To me, those are like, what do you bring to the table? Red pill. He's a red pill. He doesn't even know he's been red pilled. He's been red pilled, He
has. Or the other less obvious thing for them to say is when they start throwing around the terms high value. run for the hills.
Oh God, no. That man is like so far down the red pill pipeline. He's not coming back, probably. You know. So then that's what, like, it's so dangerous now because all these men, the algorithms are feeding, you know, and as somebody who cares about men, as like that article about men not having friends, the second half of it provided all of these resources and stories and solutions for men. You know, then they did a skit called Man Park on Saturday Night Live, inspired by that, according to Vanity Fair. Like, it was literally like, hey guys, we love you, but y'all not fixing your shit is ruining our lives, and you better get it together or we're like going to leave you. Because a lot of women I interviewed were like, yeah, I have friends who are like, everyone's waiting for their husbands to die, kick the bucket so they can go on a cruise with their best friends. They're literally, our grandmas may and, you know, moms may wait for their husbands to die, but we're not. We do not have that patience, you know? I mean, some do, but like, so, like I want men, like I care about men. I know a lot of great men, but as a collective and how they're conditioned under patriarchy, I also fucking hate them. You know, I love them individually, hate them as a collective. And I think as someone who almost got murdered by one, has been like raped and all that stuff, like I have every reason to hate them, but I also want them to get well. Right. But I don't want women dying and paying the price of men refusing to deal with their shit, which is basically what a lot of them like, just, they don't want to change. It's like, okay, well, have fun trying to figure this out on your own, which I actually think a lot of them will change when we just stop enabling them, which is what our issue is in the enabling and caretaking of men. We don't know how to not do that.
No, it's true. The programming goes so far. And I'm glad you mentioned that too. Mm-hmm. Like, I also love men and know wonderful men, and would love if the ones who are problematic would take a cue from the ones who are not. And so while I've occasionally been accused of misandry with this podcast, because I talk about these themes all of the time, the purpose is to just highlight, like you were saying, women only got certain things recently. I think it was like just 1970 that we were allowed to either have a bank account or have a credit card. That was 5 seconds ago in the scheme of things. And to see how quickly women have been able to rise above and become the predominant purchasers of homes and start really thriving in what were traditionally male-dominated careers, it just goes to show that rather than just sitting in your sadness and dwelling and being like, I'm such a victim of this, and women are so awful, and the system is so awful, blah, blah, blah. I'm a victim. This is what you hear so much from this red pill community, of how ostracized they are because women are so terrible. And it's like, no, the point of these conversations, when I have them, is to be like, okay, these are actually our grievances. How do we work together, men and women, to resolve these grievances? Because there are many women, like, on the one extreme end, there's 4B movement. And on the other extreme end, there's women like me who I would love to get married. I would love to have a family, but I have standards. And it's very hard to find men who meet these standards. Like, I am in my mid-30s and I go on these dates sometimes. And it's like, these men want unconditional love, but romantic love is conditional. You're never going to get unconditional love from me. You don't deserve it, because that's for children. That's not for grown adults.
Yeah. And my dog gets unconditional love. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing is that part of it is, I have a history degree, and I actually, that kind of radicalized me because I just didn't know. And then I continued to, after, I got that, I was like, the more you realize you don't know, the more you realize you don't know. So it's like a never ending pursuit of what actually it was like. But what I realized, that, like, I used to think that, like, one of my grandmas was such a bitch, and my grandpa was such a happy, lucky guy. And both my grandmas died before my grandpas. One of them, when I found out, she was a literal hostage. This man would not give her a divorce. He was abusive. She begged 20 years. She wanted to get out of this marriage. He would not, because back then if they get tired of you, they can just say you're crazy and get you put in locked up, right? You get a lobotomy or just like institutionalized forever. Or they could be like, no, you're staying, bitch, but they still like cheat on you and do whatever the hell they want, right? And so a lot of people, it's a really tough pill to swallow. Doesn't mean that love didn't exist at all. But most our grandmas were hostages, because if you don't have fucking money, are you choosing to be there? Are you really? Even if that man loves you to death. And again, I'm not saying that there aren't any of those relationships, but if you are dependent on somebody, which is why they want this trad wife crap, which is all a lie anyway, they want us dependent on them because they don't like the fact that we can leave. That's why they don't like no fault divorce. That's why they don't like us. They don't want us to pay us more. They don't want to have to actually, a lot of men see marriage as the finish line, where most women view marriage as like, we're beginning of a new adventure. But a lot of men are like, cool, I'm good, locked in, don't have to do anything. And now I get all this free labor and someone who has to fuck me all the time. And even if you don't have to, because you don't, it wasn't until the 90s where you actually did. Until Lorena Bobbitt cut off her fucking husband's dick because he was abusing her. And then it was like, oh, right. Oh, I guess marital rape does happen. Huh. And they, finally started changing more of those laws in the States. But like, you could literally rape your wife until the 90s, So a lot of, it was really hard for me to realize that that's why my grandma was bitter as fuck, Like, and so I look now, I'm like, you know what, my grandpa, I mean, I loved him. Like as a child, I will look at child self will look at him in this way, but as my adult self, I'm like, fuck off. Like you ruined that woman's life. I don't even know who she could have been because she was exhausted. And, as someone who was in an abusive relationship, kills your spirit, man. You don't even know who you are. And that was only like less than a year with one of those men. So, if you can't, like, that's why even if you for women who follow me and they like want to get married, I'm like, great. If they want to stay home with the kids, great. But you better have your own fucking money. Make that man pay you. Put money in account he can't touch, and you're still going to lose out because you don't get all money going into like a 401k and all this other stuff. And if you try to, in the United States, especially if you go back to work after 10 years, who the fuck is going to hire you? Even though moms could literally run the world because they, the skills that they have from parenting is, when I see, I'm like, man, if I want something done, I give it, a mom will get it done. It can figure everything out. But for some reason, they're unhireable if they stay at home and do that full time. And as a former nanny, I was getting paid $200 a day. All right. So, and I was just watching one child. So if women are going to do that, they should get paid all that labor and so they can leave, Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm married to a French man. I live in France, and I even got citizenship so that nothing ties me to a man. So that he knows and I know that I'm choosing this every day, and it's not because I'm afraid my immigration status is going to be, you know what I mean? Anything that gives men power over you, financial, immigration, legal, like baby trapping you, and all this stuff. Anything that gives them power over you, very few men know how to handle that power without exploiting it because of the entitlement and male supremacy they're taught under patriarchy. They just don't, they end up taking advantage of it somehow, It's
true.
Sorry, it sounds so bleak, but it's true.
Okay. No, it is true. And it's interesting to me how it's not more obvious to some that the real win in a relationship is more of a dynamic of, I don't need you, but I still want you.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. And it's another reason why, and just because I worked in the outdoor industry among mostly men, I'm, kind of a tomboy, always have been. I relate a lot to men, but I've also been exploited and abused as a woman under patriarchy. I get it. I really can relate to men in a lot of the ways, which is one way why I care about them. But this shit destroys them. Like they benefit from it. They get like power and like resources, but is that at the cost of their humanity? Patriarchy teaches them to sell their soul, to not have feelings, to not cry, to not be intimate with anybody. Because especially the person they're married to, because if you're exploiting them and you're like playing into all this, if you're performing masculinity all the time, no one will ever know you. And so like some of them go their whole lives without really experiencing love, other than maybe their children who love them unconditionally when they're children. And then when they become adults and realize how awful the dads they were, they're like, fuck you, and go no contact, but like, But it's sad. And again, if your wife is waiting for you to die so she can go have fun with her girlfriends, how sad is that for him? Like, bro, you could. And so it's bad for everybody. Women get murdered and die, and children too, more. And like, we will always, but when they center men as the main victim of this and the loneliness crisis, I'm like, do you know how lonely it is to be in a relationship with a man who forces you to orbit around him like he's the sun, and you have to self-abandon more and more, and then and not see your friends as much and all this stuff, and then you raise kids with him, and then God forbid he's abusive. There is no loneliness on earth like that. I would rather be in a cabin by myself than with somebody and feel utterly alone in the same room with people because I don't have a soul anymore because they're vampires and parasites, right? So I don't fucking care about the male loneliness crisis. Fix y'all's shit. Like, I'm tired of us dying because you're lonely. Take a chance. You know, when I meet a cool person, I'm like, hey, do you want to hang out? Like, I ask women out all the time on like friend dates. Men do it with us. Do it to men. Ask a fucking dude out. Be vulnerable, you know? And so it's like, they're like, I don't know, I'm lonely. It's like, all right, well, sorry, your self-pity is going to kill you, bro. Like, take action or like, just leave us alone. But they don't know how to because they don't want to take care of themselves.
They don't want to, and they think it's gay or whatever to like have male friends. And it's like, it's so strange to me when you hear about these male friendships where they've known each other since high school and they're supposed to be best buds. And then one will be going through a divorce and the other one doesn't even know what happened. And it's like, why are you not asking each other questions? Why is all of that getting dumped on whoever your partner is? And, you know, therapy is for everybody, men and women. Friends are for everybody, men and women.
Yeah, I mean, that was honestly one of a non-negotiable before. I mean, I got married in my 40s, and I was single all my 20s and all my 30s, even celibate for a huge period of that. I was just doing 4B before I knew what the hell that was. I was just doing what I want to do. But that was one of the prerequisites before I got married, because he read that article and I was like, dude, I spent like 9 months of my life talking about y'all's friendships. You don't have enough friends. There's like, if you, I don't see a future with somebody who doesn't, I'm not going to be your only friend. I do, especially during the pandemic, you know, like I was on like on Zoom doing karaoke, like getting creative to stay connected to people. And so he was like, holy shit, you're right. And so he created a men's group. He started like making effort because he was like, shit, that's not fair. You know, if she has all these other people and I lean on her for everything, but she spreads it out. Like, it's not healthy. It's not good for relationships for either person to not have community outside of that, which is one of the things why I always like stress the most is friendships, and just community building. Like, if you don't have strong community and friendships, don't fucking date, man. You will not see the red flags. You need somebody who's like, hey, I don't know. I don't really like this. This seems, you said you know, someone who's holding you accountable, you know?
Absolutely. Besides not having friends, what would you say are some major red flags that women need to watch out for?
I mean, their employment history. Because again, I mean, as somebody who worked, like, not only dated one of these dudes, but I mean, I worked in an industry full of Peter Pans. You know, there's a lot of women in the outdoor industry, but none of them move through the world the way men do, because we've been taught to take care of ourselves. Boys are not raised to do their laundry, to wipe their ass. They're like literally just, they are not parented, like they're over parented, but then also left to run wild at the same time. They're like, and so they don't know how to take care of themselves. And so, and then a lot of these guys who don't have like ambition or like solid employment, they literally, you're going to be windy, man, and you're going to hate that shit. And they love a good, strong, independent woman. And I swear, not everyone, so many like strong, independent women I know ended up with one of these dudes. Because they're like, they see you and they have like, it's like a cartoon, like the money sign comes, they're like, cool. I am set, and she's hot, or whatever. And so, again, a lot of them don't really want to work, which is crazy because I was told my whole life that men just work so hard, and then I got in the dating world and I was like, who the fuck told me that? Every woman I know works harder than men. Like, I'm not saying that all men don't work. I'm saying that women are doing their job and then doing all this other stuff. And they're taking care of their parents and they're taking care of kids. They're taking care of their girlfriends who are dating shitty men and doing all the emotional labor for that. They're planning parties. They're doing all this stuff. And like, men are like, yeah, but I brought a paycheck. Great. You did like 1/10 of what I've done today. So that is the main thing. Because again, like some of the nicest guys will end up financially abusing you and exploiting the shit out of you because we've been conditioned to just accept that stuff and not understand patriarchy. And again, this is how it's designed. And every fairy tale, I mean, if you go back and look at and this is why I review movies on in my work, because when I went back and watched so many of the movies, I was like, oh my God, no wonder I thought like dating a loser, like everything is like Beauty and the Beast, where you date like a literal monster who throws tables and like even his fucking furniture is afraid of him, and you're like, but for love, he'll change, or it's like Little Mermaid, where, I mean, I know Disney's changed a lot, but that's what I grew up on is like, see some dude who's half dead and you're like, I want that. Instead of going and, going to the whole new world on your own, you're like, I want to do it through him and also not talk. Like, just give up your whole mermaid life, your friends, your family, and go live with this dude you barely know in this whole new world without a voice. Like, and it's like, and then there's so many movies where women date fucking losers. Total, like 10 things I hate about you. Like every movie is one of those. And I'm like, God, no wonder we don't have high standards. It's like, does he love me? Does he love me? I mean, he's kind of a loser, but does he love me? And then he finally loves you, but you're stuck with a fucking loser. But you won, so there's that. And then, I mean, to me, it's every man has entitlement. Any man who's raised under patriarchy, which is all of them, and cishet men particularly, they all have this entitlement and they all have this selfishness and they have this individual, like, what do I want mindset. They have a spectrum of it. And so you're going to see it somewhere. For me, it was always looking like, where on the spectrum of entitlement are they? Because if it's just a little bit, then you can unpack that together. Because I have a lot of enabling in me that I was taught under patriarchy to save these men and like take care of them. And if it's not a man that you're married to, it's your guy friend or your coworker or your work husband or, a group. I mean, women have been doing this as their kids. They put the troubled child next to a girl who's really get good grades to keep him in line. Like we sacrifice women all the time to hold men down and keep them in line. That's why they are like terrified of us not dating these men. That's why they're like, they're going to kill you all. Scott Galloway and his bullshit. It's like, okay, you fucking marry them, man. I don't want to marry these violent men to keep them from doing mass shootings. No, but yeah. So that entitlement's there. It's not their fault. It's that it was put there. That is part of, just like white supremacy culture, male supremacy culture is like, they are the fucking king, the king baby. They're helpless, but also almighty, all great leaders, but also helpless when they don't want to do something. They all have it. They're all in the king baby spectrum. Just like all white people have white supremacy culture, we all are on the spectrum, and like it's about unpacking this stuff, unlearning it. And so some of those men are worth that. It's worth it because they're awesome. And they, especially if for me, it was like if there's something about them that I really admire, and that like, because I have a lot of learning and growing to do, right? So like to me, okay, I'll unpack patriarchy with you, and but I'm going to learn about this other stuff from you that I don't know how to do. Right. And so as long as it's worth it for a woman and she's having a good time, and, for me, because I was single for so long, and my husband knows this. I'm like, you are not competing with other men. You are competing with 2 decades of Melanie doing whatever the fuck she wants and centering herself. And even though there's moments where I was lonely and whatever, I love I'm so used to that. So that's what you're competing with. If I ever get to a place where I feel like I'm compromising and losing that person and self-abandoning, and this isn't fun for me anymore, like I'm going to start daydreaming about her and making my way back to that life, you know? And it's not a threat. It's just the truth. And that's why I like it when women spend a long time dating themselves, making their community, treating themselves the way they wish their partner would, just building that strong community, because friends and community those are hopefully longer term, long lasting, but like men come and go, and somebody who is like, feels like really solid and rooted is not going to be easily swindled by some of these guys who are very manipulative, you know?
It's true. Once you spend that period by yourself, it becomes so difficult to look past any kind of things, where I've been told I'm very swift to not go on second dates and things, but it's because I've gone these very long stretches of both celibacy and just not dating at all. And I'm like very sensitive to what I consider to be signs of trouble ahead, when I can kind of sense, because I've been in really controlling relationships in the past. So things that look like they're downstream of control issues, I can spot that right away. And I have my time alone to thank for that. And so it is so important when someone who can self-identify as like a serial monogamist just goes from relationship to relationship and never finds that path on their own, never takes the time to cultivate those female relationships or those relationships with themselves. It does ultimately hurt you and mask your ability to be able to spot trouble ahead. So I think it's so key for women to be comfortable being alone for long stretches. This narrative that's going on right now, and I think creators like Scott Galloway are probably part of the issue, but there's the rhetoric around the declining birth rates seems to be put all on the shoulders of women. What do you think of that?
Oh, I don't care. I think it's great. It's great news. To me, it's like, women are like, no. And the thing is they don't need to be worried about it. The thing is, it's not about the birth rate. That what they need is, they need workers, right? It's like little laborers. Like capitalism needs workers, but really, it's to hold men down. Scott Galloway and I have done hours of videos on that man. Everyone, like when he talks about economics, I'm like, and then when he wants to talk about men, I'm like, shut the fuck up, bro. You don't know what you're talking about. There's literally women who've been studying this and talking about this for ages. You are brand new to this conversation, and you're a boomer, and you don't even know the reality of any of this shit. But anyway, all of that, and he's radicalizing men into the alt-right. Like there's like Andrew Tate's, and those guys are dangerous, blah. But he is worse than Andrew Tate because they have him on CNN, Oprah, every news outlet. This man is, well, 1 out of 10 guys from 10. Shut up. Shut the fuck up, Scott. You don't know what you're talking about. He keeps threatening women with violence, being like, well, single men are dangerous. Well, why don't you deal with that? Why are they so dangerous? Leave us out of it. The birth rate, though, it's more about the children tie women to men. You know, I was almost baby trapped. My ex admitted it. I got an IUD. And I mean, this was the abusive guy, the Peter Pan homosexual guy with the banjo. One day he said out of nowhere, he was like, damn it, I wish you hadn't got that IUD. Now I can't put a baby in you. Now you can just leave. And I was like, what? I thought he was joking. I was like, you can't. What? You can't baby trap me. I'd abort that shit anyway. I don't want to be a mom. And I was like, and then dummy me, I didn't understand men at that point. I was like, if you really want to baby trap me, you get a dog. And that fucker brought home a puppy like a few days later, which I had to rehome. So they'll baby trap you. They'll dog trap you. They'll do anything to make you feel like really connected to this man. And then you have the courts, and you have all, like, you will never get rid of that man once you have a baby with him. So to me, declining birth rate is about teenagers not getting raped by old ass men, because all the teenage pregnancies, almost all of them are men, not teenage boys doing that. impregnating women or girls. Sorry. And the other thing is like a lot of women want to be moms, but they do not support single moms. I was raised by a single mom. Luckily, she had a lot of single mom. I mean, because my dad left for an affair. She didn't want to be a single mom. But I saw with my own eyes that men are obsolete, man. I mean, me and my sister, my mom were out on the lawnmower. We're painting houses. We literally didn't need anything from any men. So I was like, wait, why am I supposed to get married? It seems like they just cause trouble, you know? And so some women actually, and I have friends. I have one in particular who realized she really wanted to be a mom, but she didn't want to tie herself to some deadbeat guy, you know, when she was, you know, getting into her late 30s. And so she became a single mom. You know, she went to got a sperm donor, and she is honestly one of the happiest mom I know, because she doesn't have 2 children at home. She just has 1. And she has a strong community. She has friends, all of us, because we know that she doesn't have a partner at home. Like, I try to, like, you know, for Christmas, I'll buy her a present. I know that her baby's not going to buy her a present. She doesn't have a partner to, but it's like, we're always kind of thinking of her because we love her so much. And we love her kid. Because she is community, and she did. But if she was married, oh my God, because a lot of women like and I saw this happen when I was turning 40. I was like, oh my God, all these women are like ending up with this dude they just like met because they really want to be moms. And it's like, dude, if you want to be a mom, I promise you, as somebody who was raised by a single mom and it was not easy for her, you still are better off than co-parenting with a fucking loser or an abuser or a man who's just jealous of this child and makes your life harder. So if they really want babies, they would support women. They would give women the resources to have children regardless of their marital status. And here in France, it was illegal until just recently for women to get sperm donors, like literally a few years ago. You had to be married. And it's like, bro, if y'all are really worried about this fucking birth rate, then you would let any women who want to have children have children.
Right.
So really that like showed me, I was like, this isn't about children. Part of it is about little workers, but it's about men. They don't know what to do with men. We have always historically have had a big problem when there's an excess of men who are lost, right? Hence why we have all of this, like the violence is probably going to increase and get worse while these, you know, and like, they're like, cool, we'll start a war and send them off there. They don't know what to do with men because women are like conditioned to hold these men down. And men are conditioned to do whatever the fuck they want until they have a sense of purpose with, you know, whatever. And even when they do have that sense of purpose, they still cheat and do whatever the hell they want a lot of times, you know, but at least they're like a little more thoughtful, you know, a little bit more responsible, or sometimes a lot more. So I don't give a fuck about the birth rate, because you could easily have lots of babies if you provided the resources to women. It's not about the babies. It's about the men. Almost everything is about that.
Yeah, it's about their want for a legacy. I had a thread go really viral because I was kind of poking fun at this whole idea of legacy, because that's why men want babies so badly. And I go, legacy, name 3 great grandparents. And it blew up because I was like, yeah, legacy, you don't know the legacy from which you come from. It's so much more about all these other things, as you're saying, of like tying someone down, or they want a baby the same way that some people want a dog, where it's like, you say you want the baby, but what's going to change in your life? Are you going to golf less? Are you going to be around more? Are you going to sacrifice your own upward trajectory at work the same way the mom is going to? And it's just not the same. And I've actually made this point too, so I'm so glad you made it, of if it was really about the birth rate, why not grant women better access to IVF and to sperm banks and to being able to go through it yourself? And then on the opposite end of it, to have way more resources available for childcare once the kid is here.
Yeah, I mean, women would be having, like, a lot of the reasons, the highest percentage of women who get abortions are married women with kids. It's a lot of women actually would have more kids if they could afford to. A lot of times it's literally a financial thing. I mean, here in France, I get to see, I mean, they have low birth rate here too, but when I see all the stuff they provide parents here compared to the US, I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, you know what? If I was going to have a child, this is definitely a way better place. I mean, each child in September the parent gets 400 euros for each child to go towards school supplies. That's just one. Single
Wow.
moms, my single mom friend got like got a free vacation or, at like a specific, some of their, like some sort of voucher. I don't know what it is. I don't know the details. The government, because the government thought that single moms and like people have the right to vacation and rest. Shit like that. I'm like, paternity leave. I mean, they still could do way better than they are. Like, and it's not as good as some of the other countries, but, I have this hair in my, sorry. It's not as good as the other countries, but like, it makes me angry, like viscerally. The more I started to see that's covered here, I'm like, what the fuck? It like radicalized me more because I'm like, well, no, I know so many women who really, like, a lot of women don't actually want to be moms. They just don't know any, this is what we've been taught. I haven't really questioned that. But there are a lot of women who, like, I believe them. I've never felt this ever, but with like they feel it in like their soul. They're like they want it so bad, and it's pretty natural to want children. So if they're not having it, then it's because they can't, or because they know it's going to ruin their life, because they can't provide. They don't have the money, or this man is like not a good dad or whatever. But they won't have the support they need. So yeah, it always comes down to like we could have a thriving birth rate if it wasn't about men,
Absolutely. Switching gears a little bit, because I know you were big on the front of introducing the term alpine divorce. So I want you to talk about why men are actually bad leaders.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't calling it alpine divorce, but other people were like, that's alpine, because apparently this has been around for a long time. But I've been, known on TikTok as like kind of the person one of the people who popularized it or started this conversation around how they're terrible leaders, don't follow men in the wilderness. Not because they're necessarily going to murder you, but they could kill you either on purpose or by accident. And the reason why they're terrible leaders is because they are not taught emotional intelligence. So any leader is not going to be good without emotional intelligence. So the emotional intelligence requires checking in, being aware of how other people in the group, even if it's just one person or the kids too, how they're doing, and are they thirsty? Do they need snacks? Now, who does that remind you of? It's a mom. Moms do that. Right? Like even non-moms. I'm not a mom. I'm like the least maternal person I know. But when I was an outdoor wilderness leader, I was pretty good at that because I was like, pretty sure people are going to be hungry because I'm hungry. Like I'm just kind of thinking like, what do humans need? So they are not taught emotional intelligence. So they don't know how to keep people emotionally safe. And they don't listen to women because of their male superiority that they don't even know that they have a lot of times. They gaslight, they're like, come on, they don't believe you. They're not used to listening to their own intuition because that's been beaten out of them since they were children. And so they're driven by their ego, and their ego wants to impress people or impress the other men or impress you. And it's just being ego driven is so dangerous, especially in the wilderness. And then, on top of that, there's that we've been saying for a long time, I wish I had the confidence of a mediocre white man. Now put that white man in the wilderness. Okay. Now it doesn't. And I saw this when I was for instance, as a raft guide, I could not believe how many men would be in the front of my boat. First time on a raft. They've never been down a river. I've been down this hundreds of times, and I've been a guide for all these years, and I have Swiftwater Rescue. And they're in the front of the boat trying to turn it and make sea strokes because they think they know where this boat needs to go. And I'm fighting them like, bro, you're going to get us killed. Stop. I could not believe how much they just thought they knew more than me, even though they don't. They've never been on a river, much less this river. I know this river like the back of my hand. I know where every rock is at every water level. And so when I started to see how overconfident they were when they knew literally nothing about the wilderness, that's why I was like, and then I also saw, I had a lot of great coworkers, a lot of really great men who I would trust with my life. But I also saw a lot of men are really reckless. They're bored. They don't respect human life. They don't respect their own life, which is part of their own dehumanization under patriarchy, right? And and they're just like throwing people in the water, flipping on purpose. And I'm like, why the fuck would you do that? A lot of times they're just bored and they want some excitement. And they're, like men are oftentimes like one of their biggest problems, again, to avoid themselves and their trauma, their emotions, whatever, fill in the blank. They fall into escapism a lot, whether, and so a lot of times they do really reckless things because they just need a thrill. And they just, it's like drinking a beer or like, taking a hit. It just is like, it feels good, and where women are taught like about consequences more because we have to think about the impact of things on other people. So honestly, men are literally the worst fucking leaders in the world. And the only men who I trust as leaders are the ones who've been doing that hard work of learning emotional intelligence, learning about themselves, how to listen to their intuition, and have been unpacking that male supremacy that they were an entitlement that they were taught, so that they actually value the opinions of the women who even if women don't know much about nature, that they listen to them. Because a lot of times women, they don't know shit about this trail, but something doesn't feel right. And so if they don't listen to people who are concerned or even care that they're afraid, how are those people safe? So that's with just like the average man. And then of course the Alpine divorce thing is just murder or attempted murder. So that's just domestic violence, but using the wilderness to do it, And it's really easy to do that in the woods because you are far from definitive care. You can bleed out easily. If you fall, in the street, there's a hospital within, you can get there quickly. In the wilderness, the farther away you are from definitive care, which is access to, hospitals and an ambulance and stuff like that. The clock's ticking. You're not going to survive. And so how convenient that this accident happened and there's no witnesses too, like it's perfect, honestly. And I think it's probably been happening for a lot longer than people want to admit to themselves. A lot of these accidents, are they? I mean, shit, the guy in Hawaii, they barely convicted that guy. Like he didn't even get attempted murder. It was like, man, like they charged him. He's going to be in that guy. What is his name? Koenig or something like that. Tried to throw his wife off the cliff. There's witnesses and everything. Like and they had everything. And he didn't like, he's going to spend like maybe, I don't know, 5 years in jail max for attempting to murder that woman, So it happens all the time. And yeah, like, I mean, clearly we have some terrible leadership right in the U.S. right now. Imagine those dudes in the wilderness, like, I mean, I wouldn't trust them anywhere. And a lot of men actually act like that when they're even, and they can't admit that they're wrong. Mm-hmm. And the other thing also is a lot of times this happens in the wilderness. If you got a bunch of men and then like one woman, this pissed me off when I realized they were doing this. A lot of them like don't want to be the one who's like, I'm scared. And so they kind of are like, yeah, but they're secretly scared. And then the woman is like, I don't know, guys, this seems like a bad idea. And then someone will be like, yeah, I mean, she doesn't feel safe. So they use you as a Debbie Downer. And it's like, fuck off. All of y'all were scared. You just didn't want to admit it. And so now I look like the person who's like the buzzkill and like the worrywart, So I've been seeing like the way patriarchy plays out in the wilderness has been fascinating because it's just like, it's like it is anywhere, but the stakes are higher. And sometimes you see things like crystal clear when the stakes are higher, Mm-hmm. And when all the noise and you're in the woods and you're like, what,
This is not a statistical piece of evidence I have. It's just anecdotal, but I feel like in my own life, I notice the adrenaline junkie personality far more often in men than I do in women. And I was on a vacation and it was actually 3 women and 1 man. And we rented this like open air Jeep and he was driving and he's like zooming through this super narrow, super rocky path to get us to this beach. And I'm so scared. I'm terrified. I'm expressing that. I'm going, please slow down. This isn't safe. This doesn't feel right. And he's not listening to me and just acting like he has a death wish. And that just ability to be like, well, I'm just going to, number one, ignore the people that are straight up telling me they're scared in this car, make it about me and my thrill, not caring that I'm putting everybody in a dangerous situation. Is like, if you have a death wish, that's your problem. That's between you and a therapist for you to process whatever emotions are there that are making you so willing to lose your life. How dare you put that on me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing is like, you know, once I started talking about the outdoors and stuff, and then I kind of was like, and people would be like, well, what about boats? And I'm like, oh, don't get me started on boats, you know? And then I'm like, and then I started talking about cars, you know, like, I mean, that's how, like, my abusive ex, he literally, that was one way that he almost killed me, was with a car. And a lot of men use cars because they're in control and they're in the ultimate control. And so again, sometimes it's on purpose, just like the Alpine divorce thing. And other times it's because they just don't care. They're literally just being selfish. And again, like when I started to, every time once I started realizing what that's, I mean, it's not that like I'll let men drive, but you better be a good driver and a safe driver, because I am trusting my life in your hands. And my dad was a terrible driver. And me and my sister almost died so many times in that man's car. And so like he made me like really be cautious of men driving. And then I dated angry men and was like, oh God, it's like a lot of y'all, you like won't regulate your emotions. You refuse to. And so you take it out on, you know, speeding and doing all this dangerous stuff. Or, you know, you just want to like, yeah, go four-wheeling and, you know, speeding and stuff. And it's like, again, even if it's not to intentionally scare you, which a lot of times it is, it's because they don't care. Because they literally have been conditioned to, I want what I want when I want it. And where women are like, I don't know what I want, because I'm so exhausted by worrying about what everybody else needs. And so you have these two extremes, which is, I'm like, you know, men could learn a lot from women and women could learn a lot from men. If we could just, because we're still so socialized to be codependent and enabling that, like, codependent for lack of a better word, that even when we think we're being super selfish, we're still really not even close to what, you know what I mean? Like, even if we overcorrect, we're still doing too much, you know? And so I want women in the wilderness to stop. I want women to go into the wilderness. And that's what I was getting lost in the conversation is it's very empowering. I want women to go in the wilderness. I just don't want them to follow men in the wilderness. I want you to go learn how to climb from women. If you want to be a climber, learn all these, like learn about the hike. If you're going to go hiking with a man, go hiking on your own. So you're a confident hiker and can trust your intuition and know how much water you need and know, like, have a backup plan so that if this man fucking, you know, abandons you, you're fine because you know how to do this, you know? And if you don't feel safe in a car with a guy, you know, obviously it's too late once he's like, vroom, but like, don't fucking get in the car, you know, or like, and, you know, in natural disasters. I mean, this goes viral all the time too. And people are like, you know, Mel Hamlett told you not to trust men. They'll be like, I'm not evacuating, you know? And you're like, okay, cool. Like a category 5 hurricane's coming. And they think that they can take on a storm like that. And meanwhile, the whole family, women, little kids are all like now in danger because they trusted his judgment. Why? They have the worst judgment. Why are you trusting their judgment? So what if you're a little overly cautious? What? Maybe it costs you a little money and it's a pain in the ass, but if it doesn't feel right and you're not comfortable, then fuck, leave him there to deal with the hurricane by himself. Go stay at a hotel and you know, somewhere, I don't know. Like, I know that's not an option for everybody, but I want women to trust their own intuition and build their own leadership skills, because we actually are amazing leaders, but we're not confident leaders. We don't have practice at it, even though we are in the home and all these other areas that we're like, it's okay to be. But in these areas that men are supposed to be the leaders and stuff, I mean, shit, we know women are running these families. The men are just like calling the shots because they want to, but they literally don't even know their kids' fucking eye color and birthday. Like, how the hell are they the head of that household? My dad spelled my name wrong on the birth certificate and literally like, you know, like didn't even know what my sister's job was. I mean, I was like, I'm like, how the fuck are these men considered the head of a household when they are the least invested and know the least about everyone's needs. How can you consider them the leader of your house or your group going into the wilderness, or the person driving the car, or a guy's like, hey, I got a boat. Let's go out on the water. And you're like, if that guy does not have good judgment and emotional intelligence, don't get in that fucking boat, man. I've dealt with as someone who taught canoe trips, men in boats, especially drunk men in boats, are fucking terrifying. And they almost got so many of my students killed on the water because they're like, whoa, you know, and they're drunk. So yeah, like they're predators. They're either predators or they're liabilities a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And until you prove that you're not either of those, I'm not trusting you, you know? And it may sound a little radical, but I've almost died too many times to take my chances anymore. And like, so what? You have to prove yourself to me. How is that a bad thing? Then I trust you more. You know, like
this rift that we're seeing, this kind of digging the heels in and the reactionary red pill stuff and all of that. Do you think it's going to get worse before it gets better?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, but kind of everything is that way though. I mean, even I'll just say this in my own personal life. Usually it's only like it gets darkest before the dawn, you know, usually, I mean, pain is the impetus for change. For me personally, I mean, I hate it. I wish I was just motivated by self-love and all this stuff, but usually the things that make me personally change. And and again, I actually can relate to men in a lot of ways. And so I understand, and I've been around them so long and I worked with them. I understand a lot of their thinking. And it's like, a lot of them are not going to change until they don't have any women left enabling them. And so if a woman won't date them, they're going to try to move in with their mom. But if their mom doesn't let them move in, they'll try to move in with their aunts or a friend or a coworker. And if all those women say no, then they're either going to be maybe, suicidal or self-destructive, or they may be like, well, fuck, I guess I got to go to therapy. I hate it that it's going to take that, but, and also just because the algorithms, we can thank the billionaires for this. One of the reasons why these men are getting radicalized is because they're being targeted. I mean, my husband, as soon as he opened up a Twitter account several years ago, it immediately had him follow Elon, Trump, and all these he was like, what? I don't want this. When he joined TikTok, it kept trying to send him to the alt-right pipe. And so he gave me his phone and I had him follow a bunch of awesome, like feminist men who are talking to men, not the ones who are, stealing our shit and then basically, exploiting women's hope, but like the men who really want to help men. I had him follow all those guys. And so he got into the right side of TikTok. Right. But most people they're not doing that for their sons. They don't know that their husbands, their sons, their brothers are getting radicalized. So yeah, I think it's going to get really bad. I mean, shit, just the last couple of weeks in the news with all these family annihilators. And I mean, so it's going to be bleak and at the same time, I think women are becoming more afraid and they're starting to learn that they got to protect themselves and we're becoming less incentivized to help men because the cost is our lives. And so I do believe that a lot of men will finally change when they have no choice. Unfortunately, it might take that. And other ones, they see, like role models that are really healthy. And they're like, yeah, like hating women is like kind of tiring and it's pretty lonely. And all these like other losers kind of suck. Like, and they see one role model that's healthy and then they may start, kind of unred pilling themselves, but it's just, I feel bad for them because they are being targeted, it's not their fault that they are raised like this from birth to think that they are superior to us. It's not their fault they're being targeted, but they are responsible for, I have to unlearn white supremacy culture. It's not easy, but it's something I got to do. So if I have to do that with that and, all these other systems, why can't men do that? Like it's just the ego deflation. And it's growth, and it's like loving yourself. Like it's not that fucking hard. Like, it's not like a prison. It's literally a beautiful thing. They'll do anything. They'll go to these camps where they torture themselves, men boot camps to like have a man yell at them and do all this stuff. It's like, bro, they go climb Everest and like almost die and freeze off half their face. And they're like, I guess my wife and kids do actually love me. Maybe I should spend more time with my family. And it's like, bro, did you have to climb Everest to learn that?
Well, bleak as that is, it still sounds really hopeful. Mel Hamlett, if people want to know more about what you're doing, where can they go?
Well, YouTube is where I do the most work. So it's all of my handles are Mel Hamlett or Melanie Hamlett. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Patreon is where I share my personal stuff. Because the internet's crazy. So I tend to not talk about my personal life as much there, but on Patreon, I talk a whole lot about my decentering men and like all kinds of stuff. And it's more personal. So any of those platforms. And also I've got like over 60 articles for Cosmo, Glamour, Harper's Bazaar, Daily Beast, Washington Post, Huffington Post, blah, blah, blah. I've written a shit ton of stuff before I kind of moved over to mostly video essay, but I'm really proud of all that work that I did too.
Well, this was such a fun conversation. I really appreciate you joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun. I'm sorry it sounds bleak, but it's really not. I promise. It's hold the line, ladies.
It's not bleak at all. It's my favorite kind of conversation. So thank you again. And thank you everybody for listening. Bye. If you know somebody that would enjoy this episode, feel free to share it with them. And thank you for listening to Galina Ravina Podcastina, the show where I try to be the person my dog thinks I am. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. See you on the next one.